Welcome to Meet the Candidate, and my guest for this session is Gail Tarleton. She is a candidate for Secretary of State, and welcome, Gail.
Good to see you, Sue Lani, and thank you so much for doing this.
Yes, it's really nice to have this video option, especially this year.
Oh, especially.
So this is a get acquainted interview, and I start with tell us about where you grew up and went to school.
I am a transplant to Washington State. I grew up in a very small town north of Boston, Mass. It's called the North Shore of Boston, in Manchester by the Sea, Massachusetts. A really small town, 5,000 people, and it's celebrating its 375th anniversary this year.
Yeah, I've actually heard of Manchester by the Sea because there's a movie of that name that's come out.
It was filmed in my hometown, and a lot of my friends growing up were in the background in the support cast in the movie.
Oh, that's really cool. So what brought you to Washington State?
We love the Northwest. We first started visiting here for vacations in 1985. We went to Oregon coast, and we're just south of the Washington border, and we said we're going to make it into Washington State. And by 1988, we were able to get out here for our vacation. And after 2 weeks, Olympic Peninsula, the Southwest, the coast, and all along the Puget Sound, we said we're going to find a way to move here for all of our lives. And we did that in 1990. We came here for my husband to ostensibly go to graduate school at the University of Washington, but it was really because we wanted a place to live where he could fly fish all the time.
It's either here or Montana. So
it's either here, and it was definitely going to be near the coast and salt water. That's where I grew up, and I wanted to be by the salt water again.
Well, after you grew up by the salt water on the East Coast, was there some other training or schooling that you pursued?
Yes, I graduated from our local public high school, Manchester, Massachusetts, and in Manchester, and I went to Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., and you know, Sue Lani, I remember my grandfather saying, "It's no place for a young woman to be by herself in Washington, D.C."
I think I had a grandfather like that too.
We probably all do, but I so wanted to be in the School of Foreign Service, and so I had made a lot of friends in the summers of my sophomore and junior year in high school, where they said to me, "You should be looking at Georgetown. You have such a really strong interest in international affairs," and so I set my sights on Georgetown, and I was able to get in, and so I went there right after high school. I got a college, a bachelor's degree from Georgetown. And then I got hired into the Defense Intelligence Agency right out of college. And it was an extraordinary time, Sue Lani, because it was, of course, the Cold War. It was the depths of the Cold War in 1980-81. And I had this incredible opportunity. The Defense Intelligence Agency was offering student employees who had been in the federal civil service for at least a year or in the military to attend graduate school part-time at Georgetown, and they would pay for graduate school. And so I was working full-time, and I went to grad school part-time and finished my master's degree in government and national security studies 2 years after I had started working at the Defense Intelligence Agency.
Well, that's a really interesting first job out of college.
You bet. It was the best job I ever could have hoped for, and I never actually expected to leave the intelligence community, except my husband, then boyfriend and now husband. He was also working there, and that's when he decided, you know, we got married, and he said, I really want to go to grad school at some point. And that's what brought us out to the Washington State and the Northwest.
Yeah. So is there some place that you've traveled outside of that travel out here for vacation, but some place that you've traveled that's given you some insights into our own culture and society?
Yes, I had been studying the Soviet Union and Russian history really since I was 16 years old. When I was in high school, I took a year-long high school history class in Russian history, and it fascinated me, the historical experiences of the Russian people and the cultures and the language. And I couldn't study Russian in high school, so I was determined that I would study Russian history and Soviet history and politics when I went to Georgetown, and I did. And I studied Russian for all 4 years, but I could not go to the Soviet Union. It was the Cold War. There were extraordinary restrictions on who could travel back and forth. There were very rare opportunities to go to the Soviet Union or to China. And so in 1992, I'd actually left the Defense Intelligence Agency. We were living out here in Seattle. I'd gone to work at a very large private science and technology company that did programs for the federal government in national security arena and in environmental cleanup and other parts of the federal government. And I started their businesses in Russia after the Soviet Union collapsed. So my first trip to Russia was in 1992. And it changed my whole worldview of what it was going to take to come through the consequences of the Cold War and to build relationships with scientists, engineers, decision makers, to try to figure out how we would never revert to the Cold War again. That 1992 experience led to actually 8 years of my leading our business operations in Russia and Ukraine for my company and employing individuals who were Russian nationals, Ukrainians, as well as Americans working in Russia in our offices. And the second experience, Sue Lani, was 2005. I had then left the private sector, went to work at the University of Washington in 2004, and I was given the opportunity to go on a trade mission with Washington State Trade Alliance and the Chamber of Commerce here in Seattle. And it was an extraordinary trip. We went to Hong Kong and southern China, the southern provinces of China, and that's when I saw globalization. That's when I knew the impacts of trade, commerce, the global economy, Washington State's trade-dependent economy. Everything was connected to Asia and China was on the verge of becoming close to the largest economy in the world. They had a plan to get there by 2020, and they have.
That's a fascinating background. And we've just about come to the end of our time. And that last question to you, which is, so why should people vote for Gael Tarleton for Secretary of State?
I'm a national security and defense intelligence analyst with more than 30 years experience defending our country. And the nature of this job has changed since 2016, when we knew the Russians were interfering in our elections. Voting rights are under attack right now. Our elections are under attack by both foreign and domestic parties. Donald Trump has been attacking our voting by mail, our U.S. Postal Service, our voting rights consistently for the last 6 months. Our Secretary of State does not have a plan to deal with the disruptions to our Postal Service. She has not stood up to Trump's attacks, and those attacks just keep coming. I am very focused on making sure that our elections are secure and that every vote will be counted. When I am your Secretary of State, I would truly appreciate your support.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of the campaign.
Thank you so much, Sue Lani, and stay safe out there, okay?
And try to breathe.
And try to breathe.
I should say we're recording this on the day with the worst air quality in the world in the Northwest. So
I know. It's thinking of everybody, okay?
Yeah.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
90 million Christians are eligible to vote.
40 million didn't.
That's 45% of eligible Christians not voting.
We can change that.
We believe We Vote was designed to arm people of faith with information on candidates
and how they line up with biblical and constitutional principles.
It's simply WeBelieveWeVote.com.
We're on a mission to rev up the 2020 election.
Tell your friends, your neighbors, and especially your pastors to rev up.
Be an educated voter.
Arm yourself with truth based on the Word of God.
2020, rev up.
Register, educate, vote.
Rev up.
Rev up.
Rev up 2020.